Hello and welcome to Cooking with Fee. Today I'm going to cook cottage pie, especially requested by you, Alessandra. So what we've got here, we've got 500 grams of minced beef, 5% fat, and then to that we're going to add some vegetables. We're going to chop an onion, and then we're going to grate some celery and grate a carrot into the mix, because I like lots of vegetables in, but I don't necessarily want to feel the texture of them. And then we're going to sprinkle that with some flour to thicken it. You don't have to use flour. You can always grate a potato in if you want it to be thickened. The texture's not quite the same, but it involves you not using any flour. And then we're going to make our gravy up with some hot water, and to that we're going to add some beef stock, some tomato paste, and the secret ingredient, which is Worcestershire sauce. And to top that off, we're going to take half a bag of potatoes. We're going to peel them, chop them, boil them, and then mash them, and we'll top the meat sauce, put it all in the oven, and we'll have a fantastic cottage pie at the end of it. So now we're going to peel the potatoes. You can use a knife to do this. I like to use a peeler, and I like to use a Y-shaped peeler. My husband likes to use one of these peelers, and we have to have both peelers because neither of us can cope with the other peelers. Anyway, so I'm getting on with my Y-shaped peeler, and I'm just going to start peeling the potatoes just as close to the skin as possible, because all the nutrients are under the skin. And there we go, it's quite nice, there's no eyes in this potatoes, and they're all nicely washed. There we go, so that's nicely peeled. And then what I'm going to do is take my knife and chop it into quarters and just pop it in a pan, and then I'm going to put some cold water on it, put it on the hob, bring it up to boil, and then boil it for 15 minutes. And those are our peeled and chopped potatoes on the pan. Just going to turn the gas on and bring them up to a boil and cook them for 20 minutes. So we've got the potatoes on to boil, and now what I'm going to do is chop an onion. So we're going to peel off the first layer, top layer of skin, maybe the first layer of onion as well, it seems to make it a bit easier. And yes, it might make me cry. It's a bit of a worry really, because I've got lots of makeup on. So hopefully it won't do that. Let's push that bit down. And I'm using a sharp, big knife. And we're going to cut it down. And then across. So we get a nice even dice. There we go. And the other side. 1, 2. And then down, and then across. So a nice even shaped dice. And next we're going to peel our carrots. So good old peeler again. This is actually a vegetable peeler really. Oh, there's onions are starting to get to my eyes. I'm starting to weep a bit. Oh dear. I think there's an awful lot you can do about onions and crying. And you can buy goggles and things. I can't imagine anything more ridiculous than wearing a pair of goggles to chop an onion. And you're supposed to be able to soak them in water as well, but I'd imagine that'd probably make them go a bit soggy. So I'm not recommending that to try. So I'm just going to take the grater, I'm going to grate the carrot. Again, watch your fingers grating a carrot. And your knuckles. And that's flying everywhere. Super job. There we go. I've actually had this grater since I was a student. My dad bought it for me from Cash and Carry when I was 18, just off to university, so it's a fair old age, and it hasn't rusted at all. It's absolutely brilliant bit of kit. So we're going to grate the celery now. The celery is a bit of a pain to grate because it goes a bit stringy, but just persevere. I'm going to move those onions over there because I don't really want to get them carroty. There we go. Keep grating. go. I'll chop these bits up in a minute when we get to the end of this. Right. The celery isn't to everyone's taste because it's got quite a strong flavour, but it really does add depth of flavour to dishes. And when you grate it, you can't taste, you don't get the texture, the cellulosey texture that people don't like, or the big hit of flavour. But it's such a great addition to especially beef dishes, and celery goes so well with beef. Of course, like with vegetables, it's super good for you. I believe if you eat raw celery, you consume more calories eating it than you do, more calories in chewing it than you do eating it. Right, that's that. That's a bit of a stringy bit, so let's just get the knife. Just chop those extra bits up. And there we have our grated celery and carrot to go in the cottage pie. Okay. And now we're going to make the beef sauce, the beef bottom bit. So let's pop the hob on. So I want that on fairly hot. That pan is going to get hot, so I must make sure I don't touch it when it's going. I'm going to heat that up for a little bit. Grab a spoon, and then we're going to add our minced beef, and then our chopped onion. And we want to fry the minced beef and chopped onion off, brown it nicely, until all the pink bits have gone and it is indeed all brown. So I'll get going on that. And our mince is almost browned now, so just a few little red bits left in there. And the reason we brown the mince is to add some additional flavour to it. It always makes it, well, you've got to brown mince before you use it, really. I mean, if you're using slow cooker recipes, sometimes they say you don't have to, but I definitely think it's worth just taking that extra few minutes just to get some caramelisation on, which changes the flavour. Right, so we've browned that nicely, so we're going to turn that down, and then we're going to add our grated, specially grated vegetables, so nobody can taste them, nobody can notice them. You get all the flavour and none of the texture. Let's give that a stir in there nicely. Good. I even got one of my nephews to eat celery without realising it. That was a proud moment. There we go, that's all nice and evenly distributed. So we're just going to let that cook off for a couple of minutes. There we go, lovely. And then we're going to take our flour and sprinkle it in, because I want a thick gravy. I don't like runny, sloppy shepherd's cottage pie. So we're just going to sprinkle just about a tablespoon of plain flour in, and that will just bind to the fat in the meat and just be enough to thicken the sauce. There we go, make sure that's all nicely stirred in. Let's just keep that heat right down. So what we don't want is anything burning. There we go, make sure we've got all the flour in. Super. And that flour needs to cook out for a good couple of minutes, because we definitely don't want to taste that in there. Right. So we're going to make our gravy. I've got a cup of water here, about 225 ml of almost hot water. It's come out of our kettle tap, so it's never truly hot. I'm going to add the tomato paste. Give that a stir. I'm going to add the stock cube. Stock pots we use nowadays, but a stock cube is absolutely fine. A couple of OXO cubes will give us a really nice kick. Try and get that gel to dissolve, and then finally a splash, or a little bit more if you like, oyster sauce, and that will give you the depth of flavour. There we go. So I'm going to give that another stir, make sure nothing's catching. That does smell really good. Just the stock cube actually. There we go. And then we're going to add most of the liquid. Don't go too bananas. What you don't want is a sloppy, runny cottage pie, because what will happen is when you put it in the dish and then you try and put mashed potato on top, if it's not the right consistency, you'll have an almighty splashy mess. It'll be horrendous. So let's just pour that into there. Let's get that stock cube in there. Let's get that stock cube, try and get it to dissolve. Blooming things. It's a problem I find with these gelatine stock pots. They just don't dissolve very well. I mean, they dissolve eventually, it's just not immediately. Got it, it's going. Jolly good. That does smell good. Lovely. Right, and I'm going to add the final dribble of sauce. There we go. Oh, a bit more stock cube. Surprise. Let's get that evenly distributed throughout the meat. There we go. That's nice. And this is going to cook in the oven as well as on the top, but I do like to give it a good sort of 10-15 minutes, slowly cooked through on the hob, just to get those flavours through the meat. And then once that's cooked out for 15 minutes or so, we'll take our boiled potatoes, mash them, and then put that into the serving dish, put the mashed potatoes on top and pop it into the oven. So we've got our steaming hot boiled potatoes here ready to be mashed. I've put the meat into a nice dish like that, and then hopefully we're going to have enough mashed potato to make a nice topping to go on that. So let's mash the potatoes. We're going to add some butter. You don't have to add butter if you're on a restricted diet, but it's definitely worth it if you can have it. Some pepper, some Himalayan salt, and like that, a splash of milk. There we go. And then we'll take our potato masher and we're just going to crush the potatoes like so. I actually prefer a potato ricer, but I think for this dish it's kind of a tutorial, so definitely start off by using a potato masher. And then if you fancy it later on when you're a bit more practiced, you can get a potato ricer. I don't like any lumps at all. So I finished mashing my potatoes. That looks pretty good. And then we're going to take a spoon and you're going to gently dollop the potato on top of the meat. So you've got to be quite careful with this, because what we don't want is to get it all mixed in together, because that will just look really unpleasant. Oh, hot. It'll taste fine, but it won't look great. I'm going to have to get a fork in there, I think. There we go. Okay, get right into the corners. Got a little bit of potato. Excellent. So that's all nicely just resting on top. I'm going to take a fork and then just gently push it down, making sure it's all evenly coated. Get into the corners. See, this is what happened if the meat mix was too wet. This is when you start getting it splurging up the sides and making an almighty mess. I mean, it'll taste fine, but it'll look pretty unimpressive. And half of eating is you eat with your eyes as well, so it's worth just taking that little bit of extra effort to make your food look nice. There we go. And you can pop it into the oven like that, or you can add some cheese. So back with our trusty grater. I've got a lump of just cheddar cheese. I'm going to grate the cheddar, watching our fingers very carefully, like so. I'm just going to sprinkle that on the top. And that's going to go into an oven at 180 for about 20-25 minutes until it's nicely browned on top. You'll know when it's ready to eat. And here is our homemade cottage pie. Looks amazing. It's leaked a bit around the edge. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it will taste absolutely fantastic. It's packed full of veg. It's really good for you, really heartwarming supper. If you want the recipe, it's on my website, www.cookingwithfee. You know, please, if you want anything cooking, drop me an email, comment on the bottom of the video, and we'll see what we can do. Bye!